战略必将遭到全面和彻底的失败。
主义的火炬照亮人类前行之路，不断崛起、不断扩大的国际影响力。
Victor Gao has now joined us from Beijing. So stand by, Ambassador Gardner, and thank you, Victor Gao, for joining us. So first and foremost, Victor Gao, you just may have heard Anthony Gardner say that quite a few people in the region don't have any qualms with this. They're quite happy. They see Beijing, and indeed your president has said that, and he said it a few years ago, that Beijing's foreign policy will be backed up by its military. And it has had, as you know, I'm sure, a more aggressive policy over the last few years. Are you really surprised that this has happened, Victor Gao?
No, I don't think China has an aggressive foreign policy or national defense policy. China's national defense is purely for self-defense. China does not have a single soldier stationed abroad except for a small presence in Djibouti, and this is comparing with more than 200 military bases of the United States in all corners of the world. I think what you see in China over the past few years is really pushing back against tremendous amount anti-China hostility launched against China by the United States in particular. And I think people should be accustomed to this kind of pushback because China will need to stand up and defend its own national sovereignty and national interests.
So what does China do now, Victor Gao? President Biden told the world that no Cold War, he said, and we've been discussing this a lot, that there still has to be cooperation on the vital issues, climate being the biggest one, with China. Is China in a position now? What do you think President Xi Jinping will do? Cooperate on climate? Take evasive action or compensatory action for this AUKUS deal? What do you predict will happen?
Well, first of all, I listened very carefully to what President Biden had to say just now. And I think he, to a very large extent, said and talked the right talk. But it's more important to see what the talk and what the walk the United States will walk. Because I think some of the points he made quite eloquently is exactly against what's the United States doing right now. For example, for AUKUS, you mentioned, from the Chinese perspective, it looks like a strong violation of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And also, it takes a lot of risk because it is really depriving Australia from that very coveted status of being part of the nuclear-free South Pacific zone. And going forward, it really invites Australia to be targeted with nuclear warheads going forward, just in case a war, God forbid, really breaks out among or between major powers. So this is actually against the fundamental interest of the Australian people. And in embracing AUKUS, Australia actually loses its very unique status as being part of the nuclear-free South Pacific region.
And yet Australia seems to have bet that the United States will come out on top, or whatever word you want to use, in its competition with China in the region. You mentioned war. Clearly, there is a lot of worry. Your country has talked a lot. Your president has talked a lot about Taiwan. And I wonder what you think about that. I know you believe that by all means necessary, it needs to be reunified. What message do you get from the United States and NATO from what they've done in Afghanistan, for instance? Do you think Taiwan will be defended by the US?
First of all, what the United States did regarding its withdrawal from Afghanistan is a complete chaos and complete sign of weakness. The United States Army chose to run away ahead of informing the NATO members, informing the Afghan national troops, and informing their counterparts in Afghanistan. Also leaving behind not only US citizens, US green card holders, but also their allies among the Afghan people. It really does not look well. And I hope the United States government, the United States military will really reflect as to why they went that low in terms of cutting loose and run away from Afghanistan. Now, you mentioned Taiwan. Taiwan is part of China, and all the international organizations, including the United Nations, acknowledge that. The United States government, ever since 1979, acknowledged that. That's actually the basis of China-US relations ever since 1979. The national reunification of China's mainland with China's Taiwan will happen. And I don't think the United States will decide to shed blood of its sons and daughters for the sake of China's national reunification. The United States seems very eager to be the big arms dealer in selling more arms to Taiwan, but they will not, I'm sure, send troops to fight for the independence of Taiwan. Therefore, despite of all the bluffings, for example, I don't think real war will take place between China and the United States as far as Taiwan's reunification is concerned. And I hope countries like Australia will not be misled by some of the misrepresentations of the United States, and choosing to embrace nuclear submarines really will take away Australia's very coveted status of being a nuclear-free country or nuclear-free zone.
It's really interesting, and we're really pleased to have your insights. Victor Gao from Beijing, Anthony Gardner from here in London. Thank you both for joining us on this.